yeah, we're going to jump into a couple of different things, and the whole point of this version is to just try and get you using maybe some outside tools within Zoom and practicing those tools and making it a little bit more comfortable for you. Slide deck is the same from the last hour. It's just farther down in the slides. So it's just one deck. One thing that has been incredibly popular in the teacher social media sphere is the Bitmoji classroom. I don't know if you've seen any of these on Facebook or Instagram, but I'm going to show you an example. So when people talk about the Bitmoji classroom, this is the example. And I'm noticing a little bit of lag. I don't know if you guys are noticing that I do have that fire moving in the background, and every once in a while it pauses and glitches a little bit. But the whole point of a Bitmoji classroom is that every single thing on the screen is linkable. So you could potentially use a Bitmoji classroom like this to teach from within Zoom. So for example, the agenda attendance issue here, those are all links that if I clicked on them would open up what I wanted to, if I was taking my attendance or whatever. You have access to this too, you guys. You can force a copy if you want to. And like, for instance, if I wanted to do a quick check-in with students, I saw someone post something the other day where they had all of the students look at a screen and then draw how they were feeling, and they did that on their little whiteboard and then held that up and showed. I think that's a great option. But everything is linkable. That's the whole point here. It's something cute to look at. We've been telling teachers in all of our trainings that one of the biggest components is still connecting and communicating with your students, but then also humanizing the experience. And so I've been a little bit reticent about the Bitmoji classroom just simply because it's not your face. It's this avatar of you. But in hindsight, I have a middle school student that when she saw me working on this, she got all excited. She thought it was super cute. So I do think that there is something to be said about the fact that it's an avatar that you might be using, but the kids still find it fun and engaging. And that's another piece that we have to be thinking about, is how we're, designing things when we're in this environment, and that engagement factor should be nice and high. This morning meeting one is another example. I don't know if you've seen Jamboard at all, but Jamboard is a whiteboard option for teachers to use. It's a Google product, so it's not something that we have to have kids create a new account or anything. It's already attached to their Google. And it's just a whiteboard app that allows you to draw on it. So with littles and their iPad, they could just draw right on this. So you could share this with them and they could draw on it, or it could just be something that you project and use as if it was, a whiteboard in your classroom. So this is available to you. It has just a couple of different backgrounds. I'm noticing someone might have come in here and deleted some things. So it just has a couple of different morning meeting kinds of questions that it definitely looks like someone has deleted some things. So I'll go back in and update that. But again, that's the whole point. And then this actually links out to someone that took the time to build 140 Bitmoji classrooms in a Google slide deck that you can make a copy of and use to your heart's content. Now, if you're looking at this going, what the heck is Bitmoji? How do I do it? Why do I care? Again, it's all over the teacher sphere right now. And Bitmojis, if you haven't used those, the steps to it need to be the following. You have to get the app on your phone first, create an account, design your avatar. Then you can actually go onto your computer. And I'm going to show you this really, really fast. So you would just go into the web store. So to say what I'm doing here, I opened up a new tab. I went to the apps launcher, the waffle in the top left-hand corner. I'm looking for the shopping bag that says Google Web Store. And then once I'm in there, I'm going to type Bitmoji. And then I can install my Bitmoji as a Chrome extension. And so if you are not familiar with your Chrome bar here, you have your Omnibar, which is where you can type all of your things. You don't have to go to google.com anymore. The Omnibar does it all. And then you have all of your bookmarks. But next to your Omnibar, you have all of these what are called extensions. So these are all things that do something really well within the tab that you're in. So it usually doesn't work on the Chrome store, but if I'm in a website, like for instance, this little light bulb guy, all it does is dim my screen. So if I needed attention and I didn't want kids to get distracted by what was on my screen, that's what that light bulb does. That's all it does. And each of the extensions that are up here helps me be more efficient with my time. And they do all sorts of different things. But this little guy right here is my Bitmoji extension. So once you've installed that extension, you have to sign in with your account, but then all of your Bitmojis are right here. And all you have to do is just right click and copy the image, and then you can paste it into any Google Doc that you are creating. So for instance, this was someone's Zoom expectations that if you click on it, it actually will give you access to the document, and then you could sub out your Bitmojis and use it there. But I just wanted to make sure that you guys knew how and why people might be so excited about using this, and give you resources to possibly create your own and use it with your staff in your staff meetings. So again, this could be a staff meeting page where all of your links and everything are located. But again, all of these items, every single thing in this room could potentially link to something else. They're all individual images. Okay, so what I'm going to do is toss you out into a breakout room and use some different tools. I'm going to use, oh, you know what? Pause, rewind. I also wanted to show you this particular Google form. I wanted to make sure I showcase this to you. So I found this online as well. A teacher on Instagram was sharing this with people, and I just absolutely adore it. It's all about the comfortability with using Zoom for students. So you can for sure make a copy of this, showcase this with your teachers, and say, hey, this might not be a bad idea. And they can edit it. Obviously, if there's questions in here that aren't helpful, you can, delete those or whatever. But this might even be fun to do with your staff. Have them take this, let you know how they feel about participation within Zoom. So I wanted to make sure I showed that. So that's within this button right here on the Zoom expectation pages. Okay, keep going. So you can use Google Forms, you can use Google Slides, you can use, I'm going to show you Mentimeter as well as a way to engage people when they're in breakout rooms. Most of the time when I am in a breakout room that is PD centered, it's usually just, I'm going to send you into a breakout room so you can chat with other people, which is great. But I'd love it if there was some like pre-work done so that we had some sort of central location where maybe the prompt or the questions, there's always some kind of this like awkward waiting period where we're like, what are we supposed to do? I don't know. And so I think when we give some specific instructions or tasks utilizing some of the tools we have, we're going to get more engagement. Then we also have this kind of end piece to go walk away from our perspective of what did people actually do. So I think the more we use breakout rooms, the more teachers become comfortable with it, and we can start to internalize how we might use it in the classroom setting. For breakout rooms, you can launch it right away, automatic, or manually. You can add specific people into rooms. You can also pre-do room settings in your meeting settings section. So if you wanted to take the time ahead of time to set up a meeting and then do breakout rooms where your first grade team was already together, your second grade team, your third grade team, your fourth grade team, you can set that up before the meeting even starts. And you can create that as a template. So moving forward, you do it once and you don't have to do it again. So all of your grade level teams are set up ahead of time for breakout rooms. So that would be, I think, really helpful and a time saver. Okay, so again, you constantly have options within your controls to move participants in and out of breakout rooms. You can send them messages while they're in breakout rooms. And you also can, when you're in a Zoom session, I don't know if I have this listed somewhere. When you're in, well, I'll go back to that. When you're in a Zoom session, you also, it automatically keeps the information for all breakout rooms and doesn't reshuffle people, but you can if you wanted to. So if you had people go into a breakout room at the beginning of a staff meeting and you wanted them to meet one more time in the middle of the staff meeting, but then at the end for exit, you want to shake things up a bit and give them, put them into new rooms, you have the ability to do that by hitting this recreate button at any time. Otherwise, if you don't hit that recreate button, then they will maintain in their breakout rooms for the entirety of that Zoom session. It doesn't change the information. Another thing to keep in mind too, the Zoom breakout rooms become their own Zoom room itself. So even if you're recording your Zoom, you are not recording each individual breakout room. So that's something to think about. So in terms of the classroom utilizing the breakout rooms, they are not recording that. The only time a breakout room is recorded is if you are recording as the host and you go into that breakout room, then it will record it. Otherwise, those breakout rooms are separate entities and you are not recording them. Okay. So this is where I was talking about when you are creating your meeting in Zoom ahead of time, you can create your breakout rooms here. Okay, so let's try the breakout room with an activity. So what we're gonna do is, Jen, do you wanna pop that into the chat for me? Or I guess I can do it, I'm there, I've got it. Okay, can I have everyone in the chat, if you have the chat open, can you go ahead and open that slide deck that I just dropped in? And we'll talk about this a little bit. Okay, so one thing I think with breakout rooms is, like I said, giving them the prompt or activity to do. And on my end as the host, I can immediately see that all of us are in the slide deck. I'm actually checking right now. I have 9 people. Yes, okay, so I have 9 people in the slide deck right now. Fantastic. And I'm going to break you out into breakout rooms. And when you're in your breakout room, you're going to go to the slide in the slide deck that is the same number as your breakout room. So if you're in breakout room 1, your slide is slide 1. If you're in breakout room 2, your slide is slide 2, and so on. Okay, and you actually do have in the gray outer work area some of your instructions. So part of the directions or instructions are to turn your video off. Now, when we're using breakout rooms with staff or students, turning the video off again helps with lag and your bandwidth, but then it also helps for people to kind of focus in on the task at hand and to not get sidetracked with the video being on. But then also, when students are utilizing this on a Chromebook, for example, they actually are now in a, Zoom is running in the background, but they're in a separate tab. So having the video on doesn't really matter in that instance because they're not even in the Zoom room necessarily, but they can still hear the audio. But I think that that's the important part here is that they can still talk to each other, but they're filling out the prompt or the engaging session at the same time. So it's a collaborative experience. So yeah, so pay attention to the directions on the gray side, and that's a space where I love to remind people that's there for you to give those kinds of instructions, and then leave the space on the slide deck free for the students or teachers to work in. Okay, so I'm going to send you into breakout rooms. Were you able to see my communications? Awesome. Okay, friends, so how'd that feel? Thumbs up, you wanna give me a reaction? Awesome. Okay, so I wanted to show you the screen that I was kind of looking at, again, from a perspective of a teacher. Hopefully you saw some of the like shout outs and instructions that I was sending or broadcasting to all of the breakout rooms. So from my view, I could see you guys all live typing as you were going. And even down here in this, so it's just a Google slide deck you guys were all working in. And so when I go to the grid view, I get an even bigger view of everyone, again, live typing. So just from a management perspective, like I can clearly see where everybody is. I can even hover over and see where people are. I can, you know, like I said, I was like, oh, great job, slide 1, slide 3, slide 4. You know, I can give direction. Even though I'm not in every additional room, I can clearly see live what is happening. So I think this is quite powerful and kind of exciting to kind of think from the management perspective. Like I could have grade level teams doing something all at once. They even could be answering, you know, slightly different questions based on their grade level content. But I can see what everyone is doing all at once. Someone tweeted out a picture of this and people were like, oh, this is revolutionary. How are they doing it? And I was like, oh, well, they're just toggling. They're just moving from the film strip view of slide deck to a grid view. So, so you can just jump in at any time and see. And the other thing too, which I would tell students this is like when they're in, or tell teachers this about the student aspect, is when a student is in a slide deck like this and Zoom is on in the background, but they're in the slide deck window and they're not really paying attention, like you can jump in to breakout rooms and hear the audio, hear the collaboration, hear what's going on, and then jump back out. So you could jump into any grade level team and kind of hear what's going on, talk to them, jump back out. And maybe you don't say anything, so they're none the wiser that you were in there and listening to what was going on, which I don't know how you feel about that. But I think sometimes with the behavior management piece, that's a nice added benefit in the classroom setting for being able to do an activity kind of like this. Another option that I wanted to share, because just like I used a slide deck here, but another option could be to give a Google form. So someone was mentioning earlier that they had like a video that they wanted staff to watch for the first staff meeting back. Well, you could put that video in a Google form with some questions or something and throw that into the chat and say, hey, I'm going to give everybody a little bit of time. You know, make sure your audio and microphone are off, but go ahead and fill out this Google form, watch the video and fill out the Google form for me. I'll give you about 10 minutes to do that and then come back, you know, because utilizing the Google form and putting the YouTube video in here makes it so much easier. So this is one where it's just a check-in. And honestly, I made this for teachers, but and then I went back through and I was like, oh, I'll modify it for you guys. But as I went through and looked at the questions, I was like, oh, I don't know what I would really modify. I think this actually might not be a bad thing to send to staff too, and not just students. And so this is just, you know, how did the first day go? Give me some feedback. So I think this could be a great option. So that is linked in the slide deck here as well. So I think both Google Forms and Google Slides are great ways to just kind of jazz up a Zoom meeting. Okay, do we have any other questions that have come through? Probably not. Okay, so in terms of those breakout room tips and tricks, like I said, give very specific directions, remind teachers about, you know, the videos and how that can lag. But again, I think the video can sometimes be a little bit of a distraction. So there's added benefits to turning a video off beyond just the lag aspect. And then you, again, can jump in and out of rooms without interrupting their workflow and their collaboration. You also can use, so here's a thing you have to think about. The student Chromebooks do not use or cannot access the annotation tools, but teacher MacBooks can. So you can, in fact, use the whiteboard in Zoom. When you go to share screen, they actually have in the features there, they have a whiteboard option. I don't know about you, but using a trackpad to draw things is quite awful. So if I were going to use the whiteboard feature, I probably would use an iPad instead. Oops. Okay, so again, you can share those annotation features, but they don't work on Chromebooks, but you could still use them in a staff meeting setting because it works on the teacher MacBooks. Okay. Additionally, we had a teacher go to a training with Teachers College this summer where they were talking about how important, breakout rooms are for the workshop model. But we definitely are in some kind of, scary situations with classroom management when we send kids out into breakout rooms without adults and monitoring. And so I know that Kayla was talking with our attorneys, trying to figure out what is the protocol for breakout rooms, especially with our littles, and the idea of having potentially volunteers, parent volunteers. If you have parent volunteers, though, they need to go through, obviously, the Beaverton protocol for volunteers. And you might need to suggest that teachers maybe have 2 volunteers at a time. My thought process here is I would definitely have to train the parent volunteers on Zoom and my expectations, but then I would maybe have it so that I had 2 parent volunteers in the main breakout room, and then I would manually do a breakout room with the 1 or 2 or 3 small group students that I want to do a small group conference with. And then I'm the one going into that room. So the 2 parent volunteers are in the main breakout room with all of the students. I've given the students some sort of activity, and then I'm jumping into the small conferring breakout group to do that work. Does that make sense? Are there any questions on that thought process? But I know that we are trying to come up with some sort of workflow to explain that, because honestly, the breakout rooms are incredibly important in this virtual environment, but we need to do it safely, right? But I think utilizing parent volunteers in that aspect could be very helpful. Now, I also think it's important to teach people how to jump in between different windows. So I'm going to show you a couple of different things here, and I want you to try it for me or with me. So the first one is on your Mac keyboard. Can you find this particular button and click that for me? And it should showcase all of your current open windows. And then if you press it again, your windows all come back in the same spot. Give me a thumbs up if you tried that for me. Notice how I'm asking you to use your reactions. Thank you, everyone that is doing that. I appreciate it. And then the other one I want you to try is your trackpad actually responds to different hand motions, right? Just like your phone reacts to different things, your trackpad does too. So if you use 3 fingers and you flick up on your trackpad, it does the exact same thing. So flick up and then flick it back down. Give me a thumbs up if you've tried that. Okay, thank you, everyone. So one thing that we have to understand is that we're pushing teachers into a world where some of them don't know, what cord plugs into what device and how to, turn on and off their computer. So there's varying levels and entry points for all of our teachers. So making sure that our teachers feel comfortable going in between multiple windows, I think is a great thing for us to practice. And especially if we are sending them out to a slide deck or sending them out into a Google form or something else. So teaching those little tips and tricks, there's multiple different ways to attack the idea of flipping between 2 different windows, and it's what feels comfortable. I do the 3-finger technique, but I'm sure some people like to use that key on the keyboard too. So I'm showing them lots of different ways so that they can figure out what feels comfortable to them is going to be really helpful. So I was kind of already showing you some of the annotation tools, and we'll see if it will work better for me instead of the whiteboard. Like I said, if I was going to use the whiteboard, I probably would do my iPad, right, with my charging cord plugged into the Zoom as a share screen instead of using my trackpad, because then I can use my stylus, right? I can use my Apple Pencil at that point. So I wanted to show you, for example, I'm going to share this screen instead. Okay, so I'm in the editing tools, because if I'm in the other one that I was showing you, I couldn't move things around. So in this example, the slide deck allows me to teach, right? In this case, we'll do this first activity, we'll spell it out. So I'm going to spell out the word cat. Oops. So by doing that, I'm going to grab some of these circles. And maybe I would ask the students to work with me in finding the words to spell cat. Or I could also drag those out of there. I don't know if I can drag these. Let's see if I can. I can. I can drag C, I can drag A, and I can drag T over. So this is just another example of utilizing slide decks, not necessarily the annotation tool, but I was thinking with the annotation tool, another thing a teacher could do or you could do. I think about my old smartboard. Here we go. Let's see if it works this time. I know I was having problems with it before. Oh, now it's gonna work. Okay. So my old smartboard, I used to be able to create these big like blocks. Do you remember doing this? I used to do this with my smartboard all the time. This big block where I would hide parts of the screen that I didn't really want the students to get distracted with. And so you can do that on here too with the annotation tool. So in this instance, I've just created this big block, and then I'm going to, now I can manipulate it by hitting the select tool. So I can move it around. I can minimize it. This again just reminds me of my smartboard. So I can I can say, okay guys, what rhymes, right? What rhymes with cat? And then, right, like now I can interact with it. So annotation tools from that perspective could be really useful. I think in my mind when I was thinking about the annotation tools, I was thinking about it from how would I use that as a teacher and let the kids do it? But now knowing the kids don't have access on the Chromebooks, it's really just a teacher tool. So how does the teacher tool work for me? And in this case, you know, I mean, for you in a staff meeting, you could, you know, hide certain parts of your screen, but I was just showing you from this perspective. Skip forward. Okay, so here's what I want us to do now. I love this tool. I think it would be really fun to use in a staff meeting. So I'm gonna have you guys click on this in the chat. So this is called Mentimeter. So click on that link in the chat and open up that window for me and go ahead and answer that question. So from my perspective, you guys are going to be filling that out, and then I am going to open up this live view. Hopefully it works for everyone. And as you start entering items, I will get a live screen of your answers or everything that you're sharing, and it will start to scroll. So imagine using this as just, you know, like a reflection question in a staff meeting. And as people start entering, obviously the more people we have in a PD, the faster it starts to scroll. And in fact, I should have left the other one on there because we had another one that had a lot of options. So how is Mentimeter different than a Padlet? So it's not necessarily much different other than you do get this like nice scrolling feature, and you can ask them specific questions that are like short answer or multiple choice. And you build it almost like a slide deck, and with the interactive questions instead of just a cork board where people put like post-it notes. So it's not much different than a Padlet. It's just a slightly different version of doing kind of the same kind of a deal. I think it's really neat though, once we see lots of options coming in when it starts to scroll. We use this with our 4th grade. We did a 4th grade writing cohort last year, and we used this once for them, and it was just really cool to leave it up as an exit ticket and to watch it start to scroll through all of their answers. People became kind of mesmerized by it. And it couldn't be more simple to set up. Just go in, create a free account, and then, you know, you just would type in your engaging questions and then have, for me, so I'll show you how I set that up on my end. So that's always helpful, right? Okay, so in my slide deck, speaker notes, there's 2 different links. One is a link that you give in the chat. So when in the speaker notes, now I can just click on it and say copy link, and then I throw it into the chat for you guys. And then for my share screen, I open up the live results. So it's 2 slightly different links. Let me go back really quickly. This is that Google form. You couldn't see any of it. Thank you. So that's the Google form with the video. The Google slide option that I mentioned before has the video with the corresponding Google Doc or Google Form or Padlet. This is a Padlet off to the side. So as I was saying before, you could have differentiated instruction with grade level 1, grade level 2, grade level 3 with different videos, different activities, but all in one slide deck, and you give that out to them. Okay, and then, oh yeah, the Google Maps version. So same kind of idea where I've like dropped a pin on a place in the world with a corresponding question and a video. Again, just options. I do think you could, for your 4th and 5th grade teams, if they are using Canvas or you already have Canvas or Seesaw, you could also do activities in Seesaw or Canvas where you link to that activity and have them fill that out if you have an all staff Canvas course or an all staff Seesaw class. So this is just a resource for you to kind of get some different ideas. Obviously, this is mostly instructional, the curriculum instructional side, but just sub out those pieces for professional development videos. Okay. That's it. We went through a lot today. Thank you to everyone that's been with me so far. Hopefully you got some really good ideas. The slide deck is yours to continue to use. And I will just answer some questions. I'm going to stop recording.